Thank you so much again for the space. What point would I like to get across? Okay, so the Al Jazeera, okay, they wrote an article, and this is, I don't know if this is the first time they've written an article about gold mining. That is a propaganda that's false. It's all full of lies, and we all know there is an interest group behind it, and obviously you guys have already exposed it. What is the intricate attachments that Al Jazeera goes and does an article about Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe is way down. Like, what's the interest? So we always have to look at that. So what happened in Eritrea was, like I said earlier, you guys could look it up because there's a lot of people on the jumbotron saying provide an evidence. I will provide an evidence for you guys. When you're done with this or any other time, go ahead and look at Bisha Gold Mining Company. This is in Eritrea. We crossed every dot. And when Canada, as a company, it's called Bisha Mining Company, was hired to get this gold out, every international law was checked and everything was checked. So it is legal, right? And with that, they were approved to mine this gold. By the way, Eritrea was under sanctions, false sanctions. That is illegal. It is always under sanctions. The reason is because they're constantly going after our self-sufficiency ideology. They do not want us to, farm our land and eat. They don't want us to be, we do not want to take World Bank loan. So the commonalities we have with Zimbabwe is those commonalities. They're constantly sanctioning us because we want to mine our own gold. We want to have our people farm and eat instead of getting, World Bank loan and instead of getting aid in order to just, breathe and live. They do not like that. So obviously Al Jazeera was writing all these articles attacking this company, and we had to fight every one of them, just like you guys are doing here as Zimbabweans today. For us to mine the gold legally and with all the contracts and all the hard work that was being done, why should they attack us? That is what's illegal. What Al Jazeera is doing, utilizing illegal journalism practices, that's what's illegal. So we must be on the offensive when it comes to these things. But we should only use it as an example because it's not only Al Jazeera. There's all these broadcasting agencies sitting on the world platform fabricating propaganda so Africans could, one, be hated, be attacked, all these wars come. These sanctions and these articles amount to a war. That's what happens, guys. East Africa, if you guys research, those of you who are trying to go against your own country, thinking that the white guy or the Arab guy is going to come and save you and get rid of that thing you got mad about when you left Zimbabwe, or that you're so mad at the government that you're going to hire the white guy and the Arab guy to protect you and come end the corruption for you. They will never. In the case of Ethiopia, those who were banding and being groomed by the West were the ones. There are people in them. Most of those guys who were opposition, quote unquote, they were hired as opposition. And as journalists, most of them are dead now. And their people from the region are, 1 million of them were murdered. So
Let's
be
prepare to that.
careful. Yes, be careful who you are hiring, who you are backing. Al Jazeera doesn't care about you as CCC or as opposition against Eritrean government or as opposition against Ethiopian government. They don't care about you. What they're waiting is so you can fight against your own brother. They'll just step in and loot your land. And then all that blood of your cousins and your uncles and your brothers and your fathers and your forefathers and your land, all that blood is shed. Guess what? What are you going to do then? So be careful. I advise you guys, I beg with you, think about it. You are more powerful to fix your policies and any corruption you hate in your own country. Do not hire the other guy. You do it yourself. You are more powerful to fix whatever you don't like in your country. I land my point. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think there is a gentleman who has not spoken, Sedzi.
Senzo, yes. It's
Senzo.
Senzo. Then Gonzi.
Then Gonzi, then that.
Mm-hmm.
Now then we bring another set of the people who have spoken and rebutted can come down. Then we bring another set of speakers. I can see very many people, great people who have lined up. Lukwago from Uganda, another gentleman from Zimbabwe. It doesn't matter which party you belong to. We are not here for parties. We are here to say the truth that saves Africa. And Mr. Stylan, you said I have hatred for Chinono. No, I don't have personal hatred for Chinono, but I have hatred for people who tell lies or who write bad essays. I mark exams. If you write for me a bad essay like the documentary you have done and you have not told me what to do with it, that's when I disagree with you. That documentary doesn't tell us anything what to do. What do we do with it? Do we arrest Mr. Patini, Kamlesh? What do we do with him? Did he steal any gold? Tell us. Have we reported him to money laundering systems? Is the government of Dubai looking for Mr. Kamlesh for money laundering? We want to know. So we don't want some people to bring rivalry of the Gulf, the Middle East. That's why you see there is no peace in the Middle East because of Qatar, style of Qatar and other countries. They have their problems. They have brought it to Africa. Look at what is happening in Somalia. Ladies and gentlemen, in Somalia, United Arab Emirates has taken one Somalia, the Somaliland, and the other one, Qatar, has taken the main Somalia, Mogadishu. You see what is going on there. The war will not end. The war there will not end. Those countries have come from Middle East, the Gulf states, and brought their rivalry on African continent. And they don't want us to speak about it. Why do you bring your fighting tactics? You fight each other, you blow at each other with bombs there. You want to bring bombs on the African continent. No. Thank you. Senzo. Mr. Senzo, take the
Hi, good evening. Good evening. Can you hear me? Is that okay?
I hear you 100%, and my co-host is hearing you 100%. She must be.
No, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Doctor. Right, so forgive me. I don't mean to go into any rants or anything in particular. Look, at the end of the day, I'm obviously here on this platform representing myself as an individual. Now, I do not profess to have any sort of qualifications or connections with anybody in any sort of, institutions or any sort of higher forms of government. But I think the problem is, forgive me, Doctor, if I do need to say this, but I personally think the way this particular conversation and the way a couple of members have been attacking individuals, it's somewhat a bit disappointing, especially with regards to the fact that we're trying to have a discussion about how a foreign journalism company is essentially, as you've put in your title, is it destabilizing or is it such a negative impact on Africa? Now, one of my big issues that I have with regards to that, I've got 2 points. The first point specifically, why do we need to worry about foreign nationals basically destabilizing Africa when the Africans themselves seem to be doing a good job at that? We're attacking our brothers and sisters with regards to trying to have opinions. Maybe they're not democratic, whatever the case is, but the idea being, it's ironic that we're having this discussion on a platform provided by by the Americans. So this Twitter that we're having the discussion on, it's not an African platform. We're having a discussion on a platform generated by a foreign company. We're talking about a foreign company or a foreign entity that has basically done a documentary where they're discussing the plausible. I've not seen it myself. I understand there's three parts, and this is only the first part that's come out. But they're discussing things that pertain to things that are happening on the ground. Yes, the gentleman made a case. It might not be such a massive case, but it's a valid point to say that they were recorded, they were filmed having discussions about illegal sort of forms of doing business. I haven't watched the documentary, but I've seen at least enough to know that apparently this is what is going on. So are we not going to hold that to account? Are we not going to use that as evidence to say, right, yes, it might be a foreign company, but at the end of the day, what African media sources are actually trying to push this narrative across? And let's not kid ourselves as well by saying that even if we do have an African media organization pushing the story, that it would get enough traction as this Al Jazeera one has. No, because we are talking about institutions that have, for the better part of whatever amount of years, have established themselves. You could argue and say that Qatar might obviously be coming up with means and ways of trying to present a narrative that is basically very negative to Africans. Okay, I'm not going to dispute that might be the case, but who is not doing that? Africans are doing that to themselves. We've got Europeans that are doing it to Africans, Americans doing it to Africans. The whole world is against Africa, and Africa, unfortunately, is doing the same thing against itself. So I think the problem is we've lost context with regards to what we were initially trying to talk about, which is it destabilizing Africa? To a certain extent, I will agree and say, yes, it might be, because the narrative might have been portrayed in a way that obviously makes these officials, that makes these individuals seem like they're culpable until proven guilty. Completely the case. But let's not forget the fact that we are discussing this because of the fact that Al Jazeera, a reputable sort of organization, has done a story that has basically generated quite a lot of publicity. We cannot dispute that. Whether it's corruption, okay. You talk about the Zimbabwe.
People like you who were there saluting the death of Gaddafi.
Sorry
Excuse
about
me.
that, Senzo. Sorry about that, Senzo. You will not be interjected again. Please continue and land.
No,
Sorry
that's
about
absolutely right. But no, I appreciate that. And that's absolutely fine.
Fisher, control Bandari.
Sorry about that.
No, it's absolutely fine. But this is my point. So at the end of the day, we can't have a conversation without somebody basically turning around and saying, "Oh, were you there supporting Gaddafi being murdered?" Of course not, my friend. I come from Southern Africa. Whatever happens in North Africa, unfortunately, it happens in North Africa. I'm not necessarily saying that it's not a valid case. I'm not necessarily saying that Gaddafi didn't have good ideas that could have potentially generated a sort of Pan-African movement. I'm not disputing that. I am not defending anybody in particular. I am trying to present a narrative that makes us look at it from a different point of view. If you're going to have if you're going to have this opinion and say, right, unfortunately, right, if you don't support Gaddafi, if you don't support Mugabe, if you don't support any African leaders, you are the enemy. What nonsense is that? Can I not have a rational discussion with you? And bearing in mind, the same African leaders you're sort of trying to defend, they're the ones that have been in power for how long? The gentleman, our doctor's got connections to all these people. Are you telling me that within this amount of time of all the connections he's had, that we couldn't have been able to obviously come out of whatever hole that, we have found ourselves in since the fall of colonialism? Of course, we're going to have entities and organizations against the movement. 100%. Unfortunately, that's a thing. And thank you very much for the time that you've given to me. But please, let's be open-minded and objective, and let's not be basically stuck on this idea that if you are not for the African man, you're against them, which is complete nonsense. But Africa also needs to understand we can have open discussions, and if we can't, well, then maybe we don't deserve to be developed or empowered. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate that.
I would like to speak just for a second. I think it's insulting to everybody else that's on this platform that has watched the documentary to listen to someone that's confirming that they haven't even watched the documentary but has concluded on this matter. I think it's insulting because we have people from different perspectives, from different countries. You said personally that you were defending a speaker before, and you said because you saw footage, because there is footage, therefore you have concluded on this matter, yet you have not taken the time to actually watch the documentary. Please, we're trying to have an open discussion based on what you said. If you're coming to contribute to a discussion, know the facts. Don't make conclusions and then come here and expect people to buy into your conclusions. We're going to move to our next round of speakers. Oh, sorry, Ngonzi, please can we hear from you first? Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be part of these conversations. It's been a while and I've missed them. But as far as the conversation is concerned, let me start with the question that is on the topic. Is this a destabilizing technique that the West is using, Al Jazeera, to destabilize Africa? I think, like Dr. Matsanga asked, what is the truth? What is the truth? That is something that we have to understand even as we go about it. Because we've always heard that the truth is bitter. That's something to consider. But we also have to...
Can you turn the ignition to your car or close the door? We are getting a lot of feedback.
Okay, sorry, I've done that. So let me go by saying we definitely do recognize the hand of Mr. Fisher in this whole situation. It's a fishy situation, and we definitely see the hand of Mr. Fisher. Anyone who has watched that documentary sees through the facade of the West. But also, when you look at the culprits that are within the center of it, you will find that it is the Mr. Fishers, the foreigners. But then, when you ask yourself, what does the African man have to do with this? And while watching that documentary, I asked myself, do we really blame the Zimbabweans for trying to find a way to feed their people? Is that what we are trying to do here? Because we have a situation in the geopolitics where Zimbabwe has been closed out, and we are calling them out for trying to find a way to survive. And that is what I saw. But also the question that I would like to ask is that, are we really going to sit here and expect fairness? To expect fairness, I think, is to expect frustration. Because we have to also ask, fair to who? If Al Jazeera is going to put out information and we expect them to be fair, what is fairness? And that brings me to the next point, that uncommunicated expectation is the mother of all frustration. Us as Africa, what is our expectation of the world? If, for example, we are talking about Zimbabwe, I'm asking myself the question, what do the Zimbabweans have in their hands that they can bring to the table of global politics and economy and receive bread? It is their goal. But if you've closed them out, how do you expect them to go about it? Now, I think that the real question is not so much about how much gold has been sold, as much as what the gold brought in done for the Zimbabweans. I want to believe that deep down within us, that is a real anger. That, okay, we've discovered that this amount of money is coming through. The question is, what is it doing? So, of African unity, I would like to ask you, Dr. Matsanga, as our elder and as our teacher, what is the possibility of creating a centralized mineral market platform where Africans put their products on that market platform, and anyone who's buying it is buying it from that platform at a market rate, so that we are taking out underhandedness? And then maybe it would be a platform supervised by the AU and the ADB, so that money can be repatriated to countries. That is something that I was thinking about as an option. So now, also back to the documentary on Zimbabwe, are we punishing the messenger and defending the criminals? And also the question of, okay, now that we have seen this documentary, like Dr. Matsanga asked, what now? My elder, I do not think that it is the work of the media specifically to tell us what to think and how to act. Like someone mentioned earlier, we're expected right now to be able to sift through whatever information is coming for us to determine how to act. Now that question fully lies on, one, the Zimbabwean government, and also as Africa as a whole. Now, as to the question of sabotage, like I said, definitely it is present. It is clear as day. And that is why people are wondering, why is Qatar involved in Western propaganda? But if you understand what Qatar has been trying to do on the global scene, it's to establish itself as an intermediary or as a powerhouse through what they call soft power, and Jazeera is one of those things. Now, the role of journalists, I believe, is to present information that inspires accountability and action. As to the action, it depends on the respondents. Clearly, we've seen the hand of the thieves and the holes that they're using. Are we going to deal with that, or are we going to defend the thief who might be our relative, getting away with the help of Mr. Fisher, like I mentioned earlier? But to close, this is what I would say. I believe that we are in an interesting time where Africa is being quoted. Everyone wants Africa's attention. Everyone wants Africa's wealth. It is a beautiful thing. We are like that beautiful girl of the village everyone wants. The question is, do we know what we are worth? And I believe that Africa is coming of age, and with boldness will be able to be heard. As to the question of what our message is and what our story is the real debate of tonight. And I ask again, what do we have in our hands? If we don't have much, at least we have words and expectations. So when we look at this documentary, let us put this anger where it really ought to be. We have been given information. Can we act on that information to improve ourselves, to improve Africa, to improve Zimbabwe? I say this for the love of God, Africa and its people. Blessings.